Mrs. Taberkia, can you see us streaming live?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
No problem. Good afternoon, Reverend Poole. Thank you for joining us. I did send out an email to some of the members who said they'd be attending, and then Miss Drew is making some texts as well. So hopefully we'll be able to get started soon. Thank you guys for your patience. Hey, Satu. Thanks so much for joining us. All right.
Hey,
All right. We're at a quorum. I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Good afternoon. Welcome to Perkerson Elementary's GOTeam meeting, where we will follow the agenda as it has been emailed to you and publicly noticed. I would like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the GOTeam. Only members of the team may participate in the discussion. Any members of the public present are here to quietly observe. For members of the GOTeam, please identify yourself when you speak. I am pleased to call this meeting of the Perkerson Elementary GOTeam to order at 4:20. Our first order of business is to call roll. The secretary, Ms. Drew, will now take roll.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please respond present if you are present. Ms. Blackwell,
Present.
Ms. Tomlin, absent. Ms. Muhammad, absent. Mr. Garrett,
present.
Ms. Walker, is absent. Ms. Holmes,
Present.
Ms. Drew, I am present. Mr. Harris, absent. Mr. Poole,
Present.
and Mr. Tuberkia.
Present. This team
Thank
will
you.
only be able to take official action if a quorum is present. Ms. Drew, is there a quorum present?
We have a quorum present.
Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. This was provided to you and copies are here. Are there any changes to the agenda? May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion that we approve the agenda.
A second?
I second
Second.
Blackwell.
All in favor, please say aye so the secretary can record your vote.
Aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions, please say abstain. We will review and approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting. The minutes have been provided to you. Are there any corrections? If there are no further corrections, may I have a motion to approve the previous meeting's minutes?
Motion to approve.
A second?
Second, Holmes.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions, please say abstain. We will now move to the discussion items on our agenda. The first discussion item is the 2026 spring map results presented by Ms. Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. Tuberkia. So we can go to the next slide. We will be looking at fall to spring comparison for some grade levels and winter to spring. We did this previously at the beginning of the year. We looked at the map data when students took it for the fall. And we know that this particular report comparison displays predicted milestones achievement levels by school for reading and math. The ELA and math view also displays the number of exams administered and the grade level performance. This data is reflective of second, third, and fifth grade. As you can see, in the spring, we had 176 students to take the MAP assessment, with 31% of our students, which is 54 students performing in the beginning level, on the beginning level. We have 71 students developing with 40%. 25% of our students were proficient with 44 students, and 7 were distinguished with 4%. If you look at a comparison, and now we break it down by second, third, and fifth grade. So that is how each grade level performed, and that is reading and math combined. For all, 86 students tested. 28% were in the beginning with 24 students, 48% developing with 41 students, 20% proficient with 17 students, and 5% with 4 students being distinguished. Thank you, Mr. Tuberkia. Next, we're going to look at the content math for second, third, and fifth grade. For Perkinson Elementary School, for math overall, we had 29% of our students, which was 38 students in the beginning level, 52 students in developing, which is 39%, 38 students proficient, which is 29%, and 3% distinguished, which were 4 students. When we look at Okay, for reading, second grade, okay, when we look at math for second, third, and fifth grade, that is how our students perform per grade band. And you will see more or have a better understanding or see the growth when we get further through this presentation. For reading second grade, for spring, 44 students took the examination, 36% were beginning, which is for 16 students, 19 students developing, which is 43%, 14% proficient, 6 students, and then distinguished, 3 students. When we look at comparing the assessment from fall to spring for second grade, for reading, we have the comparison here. And we note that for second grade, 36% of our students in the fall were at the beginning level, and in the spring, that remained the same. The same thing for developing, proficient, and distinguished. We know that this is a grade level that we are monitoring, and that we need to make preparations to put some supports in place for third grade, and that is what we are doing. For our students with disability, we see that at the beginning of the year, we had 4 students. In the middle of the year, we had 7 students. And at the end of the year, we had 6 students. That in itself will impact the data because of the number of students. We are a transient community. In the fall, we had 50% of our students that were beginning and 50% of them that were developing in special education. In the wintertime, we had 43% of them beginning, which means that we were able to move several of them to developing as well as proficient. And then in the spring, we lost one of our students. And so again, we still moved several students out of the beginning category because we went from 43% beginning to 33% beginning, and we increased the number of students that we have performing in the developing with 43% in the winter and 67% in the spring. Again, that is comparing apples to oranges because we are a transit population, and as you look at the number of students who took the exam in the fall, winter, and spring, there is some disparity there. Hi, Ms. Walker.
Aye.
Okay. We can go now to the next slide, Mr. Taberkia. This is our math data for second grade. As you can see, with our general education population, we are still stagnant in a lot of areas. I'm sorry, we are still stagnant with our beginning, developing, proficient, but we did move a student to distinguish in math for spring. And then for students with disability, again, as you can see, because the number of students have fluctuated, it will impact the data. But we are maintaining, withholding 50% of our students in developing, while 33% are in beginning and 17% are in that proficient area, are performing in proficiency, with proficiency. And so we are ready to move to the next slide and look at what third grade is doing. For third grade, for ELA, our students did not take the reading assessment for the spring. However, the data that we have for winter is as follows. at the beginning of the year in fall. We had 60% of our students in the beginning. We were able to move those students, at least 20% of those kids from beginning to either proficient or developing, with 21% in the fall being developing in the developing category and 35% in the winter. We were able to maintain the 12% for proficiency and actually grew and distinguished in the area of reading. For our students with disability, we did the same thing. We decreased the number of students performing in the beginning level and increased the number of students performing in developing. For math, Ms. Walker, kudos, kudos, kudos. As you can see, we moved students from fall, winter, and spring. At the beginning of the year, we only had 19% of our students that were performing in the proficient category, and in the winter, 16. By spring, Ms. Walker, we have 25% of our scholars performing with proficiency and 8% that are distinguished. Our student with disabilities, that also grew. We went from 67% of our students at the beginning of the year to 57%, moving some of those students over to developing from 33% to 43%. For reading, fourth grade did not take spring math for reading or math. This is their fall to winter data. They have 38%. They're pretty much remaining the same and stagnant, with the exception of increasing 2% of students, or moving 2% of students from developing to proficiency and then to distinguish. But you also have to take into consideration that we didn't have as many kids to take the exam in the fall as we had less kids in the winter took it than in the fall. And then our students with disabilities, we again decreased the number of students that we had in the beginning category for fifth grade ELA and moved them to developing. As you can see, the numbers flipped, the categories flipped from 60% beginning to 40% beginning, from 40% developing to 60% developing. For comparing our math data, we see also a shift for our students. We have remained stagnant in the area of math for our general education students, but for our special education students, we see an increase of 80% to 60% of beginning learners and 20% to 40% of our developing learners. For fifth grade, when we look at reading, our fifth grade students only took fall and winter reading. And so when we look at that data, we have in the fall 31% of our kids in the beginning level, and then we decreased that to 26%, 45 in developing, 49. Now in the winter, 22% in the fall were proficient. In the winter, 25% were proficient in the winter. That one distinguished student that we had, or that 1% distinguished student that we had, did drop back to proficiency, but we are looking to see why or where that breakdown was. A student with disability, as you can see, in the fall, we did not have any students that were proficient in reading. However, when they took it in the winter, we had 20% of our scholars that were proficient, that are special education students. The developing remained the same. However, we were able to move some of our beginning level students to developing because our beginning level numbers decreased from 80% to 60%. For our fall, spring, fifth grade data, We additionally see a huge jump in math proficiency for our scholars. We started off with 38% of them in beginning, and we still have 38% of them in beginning, but we did not have any students that were proficient. So, I'm sorry, we did have a slight number of students that were proficient. I believe that was 2% of our students that were proficient. However, we went from 2% proficiency to 34% proficiency in the area of math for fifth grade, and then 60% developing to 28% developing in the area of math for fifth grade. So kudos to Mr. Sweeney for his hard work, as well as students with disability. As you can see, we also are working with those students because they are not making the gains that we would like to see with that population of students in fifth grade, because they, as you can see, are staying stagnant, and actually a couple of them went back, or their data dropped. And so our students also take an assessment called AMIR, and it is the dyslexia assessment. And what AMIR does is it tells us if a student is reading fluently, or if they need more phonological support to build up their knowledge, phonological and phonetic knowledge, so that they are able to decode those multisyllabic words, so that they can read more complex texts. And so this assessment gives us that data to let us know where our scholars fall, if we need to work with them more on foundational skills, or if we need to work on reading fluency for comprehension. As we look at our students and how they read fluently, at Perkinson, they took the test in the fall, winter, and spring. It was kindergarten, first, second, and third. Since we are focusing on second, third, fourth, and fifth grade data, here are the results, or the growth pattern for AMIR reading mastery. For second grade in the fall, we had 34% of our students that we needed to catch up. By winter, it was, and this is for second grade, it was 28%. By spring, it was 29%. When we look at the students that were developing in second grade, in the fall, we had 5% developing. In the winter, we had 16% developing, and in the spring, we had 22% developing. When we look at the students that are on track in second grade, we had 37% of our students who were on track in second grade. In the fall. In the winter, it dropped to 30%, and in the spring, 29%. And for our students that are above, we went from 24% to 26% to 20%. When we look at our third grade students, in the fall, we had 32% of our students that needed to catch up, while 38% showed in the winter and 28% showed in the spring. So we were able to move our kids in third grade over to more over to developing, with 18% in the fall, 20% in the winter, and 30% in the spring. When we look at the students that are on track for third grade, in the fall, we had 29%. In the winter, we had 25%. In the spring, we had 28%. Then when we look at the students who are above their reading level, in the fall for third grade, we had 21%. In the winter, we had 18%. And in the spring, we had 15%. We also look at Lexhouse because that does impact student growth as well as our CCRPI. And while the total percentage remained at 22%, there was movement within the group, and that is for fifth grade. But I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. When we look at our Lexhouse for second, third, fourth, and fifth, our students take a Lexhouse benchmark every 60 days to ensure that our students are growing, and if they're not growing, we need to, put some things in place to see why. So when we look at second grade students, we do note that when they took from when they took the first benchmark assessment for second grade, we had one student who was within or above the initial range. And then students within above the ending range, we had 3, but we have a growth of 12.5% after they took the second benchmark. We saw that 12.5% of our scholars are now reading, a growth of them reading in a growth of 12.5% of them meeting the target to read within the Lexile band. And for third grade, we saw an increase of 12.5%. For fourth grade, 15%. However, we did not see an increase from the last 60-day mark for our fifth graders. And so we're investigating to see where the breakdown is for them as far as their Lexile range.
Thank you
And
so
so,
much. Oh, go
yes,
ahead.
thank you. No, I know that was a lot of data, but we have done some pre-work for the team to hopefully help us with conceptually understanding all of the data as we triangulate it and put it into one place.
Thank you so much. The second discussion item is a pulse check planning for 2026-2027. We're going to look at the data from the Spring Map Administration, and identify 2 to 3 potential needs for the 2026 to 2027 school year. This is going to help the school leadership as they prepare for the upcoming school year. So here are just some guiding questions that we want to consider as we come up with these goals. What does this data tell us? What good news is there to celebrate? Where are growth opportunities? And what trends do we see in the data? So based on the discussion, we're going to determine the strengths and opportunities for improvement and summarize them below. Ms. Blackwell has given us a strong foundation that we can add on to. So under strengths, we have growth and literacy targets. There was an upward trend in students meeting or exceeding Lexile stretch bands nearly across all grade levels between the initial and ending assessments. We had strong gains in fourth grade reading. Fourth grade cohort showed the most significant progress in Lexile targets, increasing from 10.5% to 26.3% of students meeting the range, which is a growth of 15.8%. There was progress in third grade reading levels between the fall and winter windows. Third grade students significantly reduced the beginning category from 60% down to 44%. We had consistency in second grade math. While many students remain in the developing phase, second grade saw a decrease in beginning students from 23% in the winter to 19% in the spring. We had movement in third grade Lexiles. Third grade students saw a plus 12.5% increase in the number of students reaching their target Lexile range. Does anyone have anything that they want to add on to the strength before I move on to the opportunities? And then in opportunities, we did see stagnation in fifth grade literacy. The percentage of fifth grade students meeting Lexile targets remained flat at 22.7% throughout the assessment cycle, showing 0.0% growth. The second goal sort of reiterates that, the second opportunity with that 0% growth in the percentage. Third opportunity is to support students with disabilities. In third grade math, the percentage of SWD students in the beginning category spiked from 29% in the winter to 57% in the spring. Our EMEA reading mastery declines. In second grade, the percentage of students classified as above in reading mastery dropped from 24% in the fall to 20% by the spring. Another opportunity is in math proficiency. Across the school, grades 2, 3, and 5, only 3% of students reach the distinguished level in math, while a combined 67% remain below proficient. Does anyone want to add or offer any comments onto the opportunities before we move on? Okay. So based on our discussion, we're going to determine the strengths and opportunities for improvement. I'm sorry. So based on these responses, what must be true for Perkerson Elementary to achieve excellence? So Ms. Blackwell did provide an analysis for us, and these are sort of the needs that we have identified. Number one is bridging the gap between developing and proficient and maintain the distinguished pipeline. Number 2, implement targeted interventions for students with disabilities. Number 3, reverse stagnation in 5th grade literacy. Number 4, maintain the distinguished pipeline. And number 5, data-driven planning for 2026-2027. I'll give you guys a second just to mull that over. And then if anyone has something they want to comment or add on, please feel free to share.
Mr. Tuberkel,
Yes, sir.
um, I just to feel like I'm, engaging a little bit. I was looking at the number of students and looking at the increase and the decrease and the way it would affect the percentage. On just looking at the number of students, and if those students are transient, I think that I think it would be good if in the smaller classes, if it could be narrowed down to exactly who those students were and if there were specific case issues there. Like, if a child was performing in distinguished and that child fell out of distinguished, investigating why, that happened with that particular child. It could have been some home issues. It could have been some classroom issues, you know what I'm saying? But as small as some of those numbers were, it seemed like you could really narrow that down, or at least have those who are responsible give a report as to what they perceived happened with those drops, or even in those rooms where there were no growth.
So just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, your point is to make sure that that small group of students who are distinguished, to sort of figure out maybe why there were decreases in that specific population, and to sort of identify what was going on there in the distinguished area.
Yeah, I mean, just overall, yes, but specifically in the distinguished area.
Gotcha. And I
Yeah.
think, just let me know if this addresses the issue. For number 4, we have maintained the distinguished pipeline. And so we're going to take a deeper look, tying in exactly what you're saying there, just to figure out what happened there. Do you want me to be more specific in number 4 and add something different to make sure that gets addressed? Or do you think that covers it when we say maintain the distinguished pipeline?
Uh, well, honestly, I mean, now that you've explained it, that's fine. But just looking at it, I don't know what that means to maintain it. So when you're speaking specifically to the students, so but
Gotcha.
anyway, yeah.
Give me one second.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
can talk to you a little bit about that. So when we talk about, and thank you for that question, Reverend Poole. When we talk about maintaining the distinguished pipeline, currently only 3% of the math students reach distinguished, and so excellence requires not just moving students out of the beginning, but providing the rigor necessary to increase the number of students reaching the highest proficiency levels across all grade levels. So what we will be doing, once students and what we do on a consistent basis doing collaborative planning is they have to bring this triangulated data to collaborative planning and then have discussions around where the students are, what the root causes of the performance, and what next steps are. Would any of the teachers like to talk a little bit more about how you are analyzing student data to ensure that we are putting more kids in that distinguished pipeline?
I mean, what you said is, I mean, the way you just explained maintaining that's
Yes, sir.
perfectly fine to me. I mean, my
Yes,
my
sir.
my thing was with the low count of students, particularly like in the SWD category or any of those categories that had 7 or less. It seemed like it would be easy enough just to narrow that down to each student. Particularly if we had
Absolutely.
a child that was indistinguished that fell out of that, what happened in this case, you know? So that
Absolutely.
sounds good to me. Thank you.
And we're gonna do it with all of the categories, distinguished, proficient, beginning and developing, because remember the strategic plan for the district is every single child has to have an individualized plan to address the gaps and the deficits. And so we have started working on that by just number one, being more intentional and data driven. The kids are even asking about their data and more curious about how they're performing and things that they can do to do better. Trying to create a data-driven environment for adults and students will absolutely help us maintain the distinguish and proficiency pipeline. Thank you for that, Mr. Poole.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more comments, I'm gonna give everyone one last chance before I move the slides here. Okay. So here are the next steps. Ms. Blackwell will spend the summer planning for the school year 2026 to 2027. We will begin meeting after July 1st to organize the Go teams for the year. And during the first business meeting in fall 2026, we will review strategic priorities and metrics for the year. We will now move on to information items. First is the principal's report.
So these are some of the April highlights that we have here at Perkinson. Mr. Taylor has done a great job with our STEM and innovation and environment, and April has been an incredible month of hands-on learning here at Perkinson. We have Hour of Code and STEM enrichment, where gifted students have been developing foundational coding games, design skills using the Microsoft Make Code Arcade, and they're really neat. It's almost like a Game Boy or a PlayStation remote control, where the students actually formatted or coded and created a game that they can play. And so that's something that I would like to highlight, as well as we had an urban forestry partnership. We recently partnered with Trees Atlanta, and they've been our partner for a while, to learn how urban forestry combats climate change, and our students focus on how expanding our school's tree canopy creates a cooler, more sustainable environment. And you can go to the next slide, Mr. Taberkia. We do have Teacher Appreciation Week coming up Monday, May the 4th. So be looking for information as to how you can celebrate your child's teacher and paraprofessionals. Final report cards, they're going to go home on May 22nd. So please look for those. Fifth grade transitions. Our fifth graders have several exciting events ahead, including the fifth grade picnic and the traditional senior walk on May 21st and May 22nd. So please, fifth grade parents, be on the lookout for more information about the fifth grade activities. And we know everyone is excited to celebrate our students' achievements and enjoy our annual field day activities. So school committees are currently finalizing the specific logistics of field day and awards day, and we will provide parents with an update about the specific dates and times as soon as the committee makes those final decisions next week, so that you all can begin inviting family members to those events.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Blackwell. The second information item is the Clustery Advisory Team Report for March 4th and April 21st. Satu, would you like to speak to that? Mr. Garrett, you still with us? Okay, I'll give him just a brief second and then I'll go ahead and move on to the final things that I have here. The final information item is on GOTeam elections. The candidates' information are at apsstrongschools.com. Our candidates for the parent position are Ariana Muhammad and Shatarian Sweeney. Originally, we did have two candidates for the staff position, Ms. Chantel Hall and Hadia Johnson, but Ms. Johnson will not be with us next year, so it'll just be Ms. Chantel Hall. Voting ends on April 24th, and we have reached out to our web specialist just to post some more information on Class Dojo, just to make sure everyone's voice is heard. And then I'll go ahead and wrap up here with our final announcements for the GOTeam. So please complete your end of the year surveys that are in your emails, the principal feedback survey and the GOTeam satisfaction survey. Please also complete any trainings that have not been finished. You can contact the GOTeam office with any questions. Just for some brief school announcements, Exceptional Children's Week will be Tuesday, April 21st to Friday, 24th. The last day of after-school tutorial is next Wednesday, April 22nd, and GMAS testing begins April 27th with 3rd and 5th grade taking Math 1. We also want to congratulate Ms. Mosley, our support staff member of the year, and Ms. Brooks, our teacher of the year. Are there any more announcements from the team? And just want to check one more time, Mr. Garrett, if you want to provide us with any information from the Cluster Advisory Team report, just before I conclude the meeting. Okay, we have reached the end of our agenda. Is there any additional business at this time? May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
A second?
I second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Please say nay. Any abstentions, please say abstain. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.